So whenever there's a usability problem, it's because someone didn't know something they were supposed to know. If we can get that information to them sooner, if we can get that information into the process sooner, we can prevent the problem from getting put into the code in the first place. That's the goal of user research, is to inform the design process, to get information into that. Let me explain how this works in sort of interesting ways here. To do this, I'm going to need to do a little experiment here. And I need someone from over here. Oh, you are a willing participant. Great. You can come and hold a string. Okay. Now I'm going to explain what this is. It's a string. Hey, us usability guys aren't that difficult to get along with. Okay. This represents the million users that visit one of our clients, a big box retailer, every day. This string, total, represents $1.2 billion of revenue each year. Okay? So that's what the length of this string represents. Now you'll notice that most of it is blue with these yellow things hanging. Each yellow thing is a foot. Its thing is 67.5 feet long. And that's because each of this represents what visitors do. The blue part represents the visitors who come to the site but don't buy anything. The yellow part here that goes from here to here is 9 inches long. Okay? Everything from the, and there's a little red part that's 3. The combination of the red part and the yellow part, that represents the customers who buy something, right? Their conversion rate is 1.6%. That's an average conversion rate for a company that large. The top 20% of their customers represents 80% of the revenue. So 80% of that stuff right there is that red piece, that 3 inches. That's 0.32% of the entire length of the string. Basically, what this represents is 16,000 customers per day is from here to here. 3,200 of those is 80% of the revenue, right? So that 32% is basically producing 2.6 million each day. Now here's the problem that we have that no one has solved yet. The problem we have is we can't figure out how to just design for them. And it's important that we just design for them. If we can get that red part to spend $10 more on each visit, that's another $500 million of revenue. And here's the deal. What gets measured gets done. So if we measure the wrong things, if we look at the whole string and focus on that, we end up wasting tremendous amounts of resource. Most of those people will never buy. Sure, we can double the conversion rate from 1.6 to 3.2. That would add another foot. Most of the string would still be blue. So it would not make a difference. And here's the other thing. What gets rewarded gets done well. How many of us are rewarded on the actual things that matter to the business? But here's the deal. We have to be very, very careful what techniques we use, because there are lots of voodoo techniques out there. There are lots of things that look like they're measuring something but ain't measuring nothing. Okay? One of my favorite voodoo techniques, eye tracking. Right? Eye tracking measures how long a user gazes at something on the screen. This is from, there's this guy named Jacob Nielsen, he wrote all this shit, and one of the things he wrote, and I'm just saying, some of it's good shit. One of the things he said, he puts up this what he calls the F chart. This is shaped like an F. He says everything goes to F. He says, look at this. This is an e-commerce page. In this shopping cart, users didn't look much at cross-selling offers, which is a common finding. Okay. It's a common finding. You know why it's a common finding? Because we've known about it for years. The reason people don't pay attention to the cross-selling offers is because they don't want them. We didn't need a damn eye tracker to tell us this. And the eye trackers, they're just getting really sophisticated. This is from a company called Sxsw. They have all these great visualization tools to show you what the data from the eye tracker is telling you. The problem is that the data from the eye tracker doesn't mean anything. It's all voodoo. You can interpret it whatever you want. Anytime a client comes to us and says, we're thinking about buying an eye tracker, I say, you know what? An eye tracker costs about $30,000. A Ouija board costs $7. And they produce the same data. Use a Ouija board. Hell, you could get 5. Give every member on the team the Ouija board. Tea leaves work just as well. They're great tools. Analytics. I know people love their analytics, but what do the analytics mean, right? Here we have a peak, right? Is the peak there because the user was interested or because they were lost, right? Here we have a low. Is the low there because the user was bored or because the page was so targeted that they got what they needed and they got out, right? What do these numbers mean? We actually don't know. You can read them any way you want. I sit in meetings saying, hey, look, our numbers went up. That means we're doing better. And then I'll sit in the next meeting and say, look, our numbers went up. Our pages must suck now. Right? They don't mean anything, right? Is this bad? Is this safe? Right? We don't know where we stand. That's the problem with these voodoo techniques. They don't tell us anything. So what does work? Well, it turns out there are 3 things that our studies have shown that make a difference. And that's what I'm going to tell you now in the next 2 minutes. The 3 things are having a good vision, having a good feedback loop, and having a great culture. And you can narrow these down to 3 questions. It turns out that as we've been collecting our data, we've been looking for questions that help us predict whether, if any new organization we work with falls into the successful groups or the struggling groups, right? So we want a quick way to do it. We found 3 questions that have a hugely high accuracy rate at predicting which group that organization is going to fall into. And here's what the 3 questions look like. Question number 1, can everyone on the team describe what the experience of using your design will be like 5 years from now? Do you have a vision? Think of a vision as a stake in the sand. It's on the horizon. You can't get there today, you can't get there tomorrow, but you can clearly see the flag in that stake in the sand. Everybody on the team can see it. What that means is on any given day, when you take a baby step, you can tell if that baby step is getting you closer to the stake in the sand or farther away. That's what a vision is. Feedback. In the last 6 weeks, have you spent more than 2 hours watching either someone use your design or a competitor's design, right? Have you actually seen people use this? 6 weeks is important because if it's longer than 6 weeks, the memories fade. If every 6 weeks, everybody in the team has had this experience, it works great. Finally, culture. In the last 6 weeks, have you rewarded a team member for creating a major design failure? This is really important. If you have a culture that celebrates making mistakes, you have a culture that's willing to learn from mistakes. Every time we make a mistake, we learn something. That's what we learn from. Having a culture that accepts mistakes and understands that is critical. If you have a culture that's completely risk-averse, where everything has to be perfect, you end up putting out dreck. That's how it works. I think it's time to retire the dogma of user-centered design. I think it's outlived its usefulness. I don't think it's helpful to us right now. I think instead we should be focusing on what I call informed design. Informed design is all about making informed decisions. So having everything in the process, everything in our tools and techniques about getting information into the design process, so we're making that up front. It's a completely different approach. If you think about it in that way, you'll use some of the same tricks and techniques that you use in user-centered design, but you won't have the dogma attached to it. I want to thank you very much for encouraging my behavior.